Hello, and welcome
Hello.
to the second episode of Overthink This podcast.
I'm Kyle Vicchioso.
And my name's Macy Myers, and
we've got a couple tales for you. Last week I started, and I think it only fair that this week we have Macy kick things off. So, want to give a little rundown of what we're getting into today?
yeah, today I'm going to tell you the story about the disappearance of the H.L. Hunley.
I've never heard of it. This sounds good.
Well, you are going to be an expert when I'm done.
All right.
So the H.L. Hunley was the third of three submarines developed by the Confederate Army, and it was the first successful combat submarine.
Okay, so
during the Civil War.
So it was used in battle.
Yes. So
Was it the first one in battle?
I don't think it was the first one in battle just because of
The
other ones
yeah.
that they built, but this is the first successful story of using a submarine to sink a ship, which is the USS Housatonic, a Union ship.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So to give a little bit of background, the Hunley was the third submarine developed by the Confederate Army. The first one was the Pioneer, which completed its two successful test runs in Louisiana, but due to Union advancements, it was scuttled and abandoned. So then they developed the American Diver, which is a second prototype where they tried using an electric type motor and then steam engine cranks. Those didn't work out, so they settled on the hand crank.
So just manually
powered, yes. They're hand cranking this big metal tube through the ocean.
Seems safe.
Yeah. We'll talk about safety later.
Yeah, okay.
So the Hunley was it was funded by Horace Hunley, who is a Confederate lawyer and businessman. So he paid for all three of the submarines. And he paid for the Hunley as well.
Okay.
So after the Hunley sinks the USS Housatonic in 1864, it ends up disappearing. So it submerges and it never resurfaces, and it was lost for over 100 years.
So did they just assume that it sank and just kind of like moved on?
Pretty much. Everybody thought, oh, it didn't survive the battle, because this is not going to be the first time that it sinks and doesn't resurface.
Wait, it does this multiple times?
It does this multiple times.
Okay, that doesn't.
So by the third time it
doesn't
sinks,
make any
they
sense.
just figure, okay, it sank again.
It finally went down.
Yeah, it finally went down.
All right.
However, they couldn't find it because the plan was to attack the Housatonic and then propel itself away and back to their base.
Okay.
So they were trying to find it somewhere away from the Housatonic. They end up actually finding it closer to the ship. So they were looking in the wrong place the whole time, but we'll also get into that a little bit later. Let's talk about how it was built.
Okay.
So the Hunley was 40 feet long, made from a cylindrical boiler, and it was built in Mobile, Alabama in 1863 as a hand-powered submarine. So they're testing it in like lakes over there.
Yeah. Is it mobile or mobile?
Mobile. It's
All
spelled
right.
mobile. If anybody wants to tell us
Yeah,
the correct pronunciation.
Please comment. Or don't.
Or don't. The Hunley was designed for an 8-member crew, so there's 7 people to crank the propeller and 1 guy at the back to steer where it's going. It's only about 4 feet tall on the inside, so they're really cramped in there. You can't stand up.
That sounds like a nightmare.
It is. If you look at pictures, and
we'll throw some up.
We'll throw a picture in.
Yeah.
It looks terrifying.
Yeah, because I'm not claustrophobic at all, but no. So that's a tight space surrounded by water. I would have panic attacks for sure.
Right?
I would have meltdowns.
Me too.
I'd throw up, I think. A lot.
That's gross. I don't want to be in a submarine with you then.
Yeah, please don't.
If you look at pictures of it too, it's just kind of like a big tube, and then the ends are like flat together.
That's not
It's like kind of clamped together.
That's not very
looks
dynamic.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's flat so that it can kind of pierce the water.
Pictures.
I mean, it's not I think you're picturing it wrong. I think I'm explaining it wrong. It's flat, like it comes to a point like they clamped it.
Got it. I know what you're saying.
It's not just like a flat block. Going into the water.
That makes sense.
So it's only 4 feet tall. The operators in it had to just sit crouched inside so that they can like crank the propeller. It has big iron weights screwed to the bottom of it that from the inside they can unscrew in case of emergency. They have to like resurface really fast. Mm-hmm. They can just unscrew the weights and I guess it'll just go back up.
This does not sound safe. Good God.
It has 2 hatches on the top, which make exiting and entering pretty difficult because you have to like climb up the top.
All right.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And, okay, so here comes the not safe part.
Now we're getting to the not safe part.
The not safe part.
The whole thing has sounded unsafe.
Yeah, the whole thing's unsafe.
All right.
But this is
unsafe.
Safe.
All right.
On August 12th, 1863, she was shipped to Charleston, South Carolina, and on the 29th of August had her first test run where she flooded, killing 5 crew members. So this is the first test run. It fills with water, and from what I've researched, it looks like this accident was due to the crew not fully knowing how the submarine functioned.
Well, you'd think you'd give them a rundown before you send some dudes underwater.
Yeah. I saw a couple different reasons. One said that one guy didn't really know where he was stepping, and he stepped on a lever, which had it descend while the hatches were open, so it flooded. And he ended up escaping.
Of course.
And then, him and somebody else, and then everybody else died.
Cool.
And then I saw another one where somebody got tangled in the machinery, which left the hatch open, and it flooded. So either of the two, they didn't really know about the mechanics of the machine they're operating. And that's what led to the submarine flooding and sinking. User error.
All right.
Yeah. So they just raised the ship and repaired it and then found a new crew, which was rather difficult because nobody wanted to go inside of it.
Yeah. I would not be first in line for sure.
No.
I wouldn't even be in the line.
Horace Hunley himself had to step up to try and motivate others. So he decided he was going to be part of the second crew, the guy who funded the submarine, to like boost morale and get people excited to go back into it. So they do another test run on October 15th. And in that test run, all 8 crew members died.
Including Hunley?
Including Hunley. Right?
This is not...
It's not going well. So far, it's not going well.
Scrap this. This is done. Forget it.
Yeah. So even though he's not actually a part of the Confederate Army, since he funded it, he wants to be a part of it because he wants to see this work. He's in support of the Confederacy. And in this second test run, it was being watched by a crowd of spectators. So they watched the Hunley go down and then didn't ever see it come back up again.
So somebody's in the crowd like, oh my God, this is going to be so interesting. Like, check this out. Oh my God. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh. And just big bubbles go.
They ended up raising it again and re-repairing it. So this is 2 failed test runs. They bring it back up. They're like, fix it. Let's go for another round.
Let's scrape the dead bodies out and start again.
Let's scrape them out and redo it. So to talk about the armament of the Hunley, how they were actually going to use it to attack the Housatonic, there was a couple of options for them. So originally they planned to tow a torpedo on a rope behind it. The picture in my head is so stupid.
Oh God. All right.
Yeah, so they were gonna float up to the enemy vessel with the torpedo just like floating behind them, and I guess like try and maneuver it in a way that the torpedo just runs into the boat they're going after. But then they decide that it's probably dangerous in case the rope catches on something or if the torpedo just drifts into their submarine on its own on accident.
Yeah. That's so that's what I'm picturing, is that the torpedo is just going to hit them.
Yes,
Right in the
exactly.
butt.
And then that's what they decided. Oh,
Yeah.
that's not a good idea.
Yeah, clearly.
Yes, so they decided that one was too risky. So they decided to use a spar torpedo, which is, it's literally, we'll also insert pictures of this because this is pretty crazy.
Torpedo?
A spar torpedo.
Okay.
So just picture like a big wooden pole sticking straight out of the side of the submarine with a bomb attached to the end of it. And they were just going to take that and ram it into the side of the boat.
Okay.
So it's attached to the submarine and they're just going to like drive up and ram the bomb into the boat.
Does it say, did you find out how long this pole was?
I did not. I mean, it's long enough that they're thinking when they ram it into the side, they're just going to stick it in there. And then as they back away, it like pulls a string, which sets it off. Okay, so now we're on the day of the attack. February 16th, 1864, the Hunley approaches the USS Housatonic above water, led by Lieutenant George E. Dixon and his 7 volunteer crew. So it's cruising above water.
So like the hatch is above water, like
You
that
can
classic.
see, yeah, I guess you can see like the top of it.
Sure. Okay.
It doesn't have like the periscope thing that you would picture on a regular submarine, but you can see the top of it above water. People on the USS Housatonic spot it because it's this big,
Yeah, it's not hard.
it's this big vessel like partially submerged coming towards them, and they already have heard of rumors about the Confederate Army having a submarine. So they kind of know what's coming towards them, and they start shooting at the Hunley. With everybody just like grabs whatever gun they can find, start shooting at the Hunley. It's too late though, because the bomb is rammed into the hull and detonated successfully, sinking the ship. But the ship sinks in shallow water, so the masts are above water, and most of the crew just climbs up the masts and end up surviving. Only 5 Union soldiers die.
It seems like an extreme amount of effort for very minimal. Like they lost more people.
Then they ended up killing.
Yeah, exactly. They
tried.
So it was 5 people the first time it went down, 8
and
people the next, and then this entire crew.
And then this entire crew disappears.
So they lost
21.
More than 4 times the people it actually killed.
Yeah, good job.
Good
job, guys. But it is deemed successful because it does.
No, it's not successful.
It does sink a ship, and it's the first time in combat that this.
I'll give it
happens.
That, but calling that successful is a stretch.
It's a stretch.
Yeah. Okay.
So now let's talk about the disappearance.
Okay.
The Hunley was due to, like I said earlier, ram its bomb into the hull and then start propelling itself away to go back to base, but it never shows up.
So was it a timed release bomb?
No, like I said, it was I don't know if this was the bomb they used, but this was like the type they were thinking about.
Yeah.
Like what a spar torpedo is. It sticks into the side, like it's pointy, so you stick it into the side, and then as you back away, like pulls the string that ignites it.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you can get far enough away that it won't.
Yeah, so it's like
hurt your crew.
It's like pulling the grenade pin, but on a really long rope.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. So since it never shows up back at base, they just assume that it sank again. And I guess this time they didn't bother. They didn't bother.
It's a safe assessment. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that are looking for the Hunley because this is a huge part of history. Like everybody wants to see it. It's super valuable. And in 1995, diver Ralph Wilbanks finds the wreckage only 100 yards from where the Housatonic sank. So this is a lot closer to the Housatonic than they originally thought it would be.
So it didn't get far at all.
It didn't get far. And it was covered in feet of silt, which is also why it was kept concealed. But
okay.
But because it was covered in silt, it's also in pristine condition.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So even though it's discovered in 1995, it takes until October 8th, 2000 that it's finally raised out of the water. And this is after being in the water for 136 years.
Damn, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. So since it was kept in pristine condition, when they opened the Hunley, it was discovered that the crewmen died at their stations and were not trying to escape, which is sort of mysterious.
Yeah. Wait. So, that's really weird. So then they just kind of like accepted the fate and just like went down? Or
well, there's a few theories.
Yeah,
so
okay.
what would you think would have happened?
My theory is that they put the bomb in, were going away, pulled the pin, I guess, and then it affected their boat because they weren't or the submarine because they weren't far enough away. Some water, they took on water, tried to go up, couldn't, went down and died.
Yeah. Well, so the reason why that doesn't work is because they're found sitting exactly how they would have been like operating the boat.
So it's like they just all of a sudden all had heart attacks at the same time.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, okay.
So my first thought was, of asphyxiation. Like they just, they're in this
ran out of oxygen
submarine. There's no system of oxygen.
Yeah.
However, when you asphyxiate, it's very painful, and you would be trying to like escape somehow or get out, or you would be like writhing in pain. Like they wouldn't just be sitting right where they left off.
Wait, I have another theory. Well, so then they had no oxygen being pumped in, right? So whatever oxygen they had that was already in there. Now, how did they light it?
Light it?
Yeah, like light the space, because they didn't have like an electrical light in there. Was there a candle?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even see anything mentioned about that. Why? Where's your theory going?
That took all the oxygen and they asphyxiated.
The candle?
Because you need oxygen to burn, right? To like have a fire.
Well, but the reason why they probably didn't asphyxiate is because they were just left sitting like right where they were. Like nobody was trying to get out. Right, it looked like they were at their workstations just working away and just died.
Okay. I'm out of theories then.
So the second theory is the lucky shot theory, which is since they were being shot at by crew members of the Housatonic, they thought maybe one of the bullets must have hit the right spot on the submarine to get it to take on water. That also doesn't really work because you would have seen them trying to escape from the submarine, right?
All of these scenarios lead to these people trying to get out one way or another. So it doesn't totally make a whole lot of sense. So it doesn't totally
make sense until we get to the third theory.
All right.
So the third theory
better be good.
Is that when they detonated the bomb, the shock wave caused their lungs and their brains to disintegrate in milliseconds.
What?
Yeah.
Come on. That can't be.
That is.
Oh, was that what?
That's like pretty much the confirmed reason why they died sitting at their workstations like nothing happened.
Their brains disintegrated? Did I say that right? Disintegrated?
Apparently this is like...
Is that a thing?
This is a thing. That the shockwave can be so powerful that it just destroys your insides.
That is super interesting. I did not think that was a thing. I thought you just blew up. If you were close enough to have like your insides disintegrated.
Because they weren't close enough to the actual...
So they were...
like destructive part of the bomb, I guess.
They were in the disintegration zone.
They just got hit by the shockwave too close. And so they just died like within milliseconds of detonating the bomb.
That's crazy. I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So that's the theory. That's
the theory. That's the
what we're
final
going
theory.
with. Okay.
And that's the final theory, and that's really the only one that makes sense because they didn't try to get out. Yeah. We would have seen that. And because they were kept for 136 years in good condition, we could see that. We couldn't see.
Did they have like clothes on still?
I'm assuming so. I mean, clothes and bones probably, because we couldn't actually see the tissues, so you can't really determine that this for a fact is how they died because we can't see that. But it's the only theory out of any of them that actually makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it.
And I don't think it's really even disputed too much. I think a lot of people agree that that's how
Do you
they
think
died.
people are just kind of over it though? They're just like, I don't know.
I think people are over a lot of things.
Their brains disintegrated. I don't know.
But yeah, that is the story of the H.L. Hunley.
I loved it.
Me too. I love history.
It's pretty crazy that they just kept putting that thing together and just going like, no, this time, I swear, this time, we got it. We patched it with duct tape.
Yeah, and that they convinced people to be part of it.
People kept getting inside of it.
This is what people did to fight for slavery.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Stupid.
Anyway.
Well, I love that story. And coming up after the break, I have a little story about women in men's sports. And
ooh,
how that's a thing. I remember we had a conversation.
Is this controversial?
It's not controversial, but it does bring up an interesting point that I'd like to rehash. So that's coming up after the break. And we are back. So my story this week has to do with women in sports. And so, before there was a league of their own, there was a pitcher named Jackie Mitchell.
I've never heard of her.
Neither have I until now, which is interesting because you'll see.
Okay, so we're talking about baseball.
Well, yes, we're talking about baseball. My favorite sport if I had to choose one. So she was born in 1913 as Vern Beatrice Jackie Mitchell Gilbert. Quite the name. She was one of the first female pitchers in professional baseball history, pitching for the Chattanooga Lookouts Class AA minor league baseball team. So not exactly the MLB, but pretty damn close.
Mm-hmm.
And it's considered professional baseball if you're paid to play. As I mentioned, Jackie Mitchell was born August 29th, 1913 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to Vern Wall Mitchell and Dr. Joseph Mitchell. As a barely walking toddler, her father would take her to the nearby baseball diamond and taught her the basics of the game: catching, throwing, running the bases, etc., all that stuff. As she got a little bit older, she started to learn to pitch from her next door neighbor, a man named Zazzy Vance.
Ooh,
which is a pretty tight name.
Zazzy Vance.
Yeah. He taught her how to pitch and how to throw different types of pitches, like a breaking ball, a curveball, sinker, any sort of breaking ball pitch. Dazzy actually was a major league pitcher himself, and he would eventually be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
That's so cool. Is he retired at this point when he's like helping her?
No, I think he was young. I think this is before.
Oh, so he's like I think he
was a few years older than her and
cool.
taught her how to play, which is pretty interesting to be taught by a Hall of Fame pitcher. At 17, Mitchell began to play for the Inglets, a women's team in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then went on to attend a baseball training camp in Atlanta, Georgia. So she basically started on this women's team and then got called to try out for a different, larger AA team.
Is there no softball at this point?
I don't think there is.
So the only option is baseball?
Yeah. The only thing you could do is play baseball, which seems fair to me. Like, if you're good enough to play, why shouldn't you be able to play?
Yeah, I wonder when that kind of split into that difference between softball and baseball.
I don't know when softball was officially started. I didn't look into that, but I think it was due to a ruling that I'm going to get to where softball was created. Which is silly that softball is a thing and just
why not just have
baseball.
Women's league baseball?
Yeah.
Well, so I played lacrosse in college, and there's women's and men's lacrosse, and it's not the same game. We don't even use the same type of sticks. Like, it's completely different.
So so then the difference between softball and baseball is probably the same amount of difference as women's and men's lacrosse.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that happens.
Yeah, I don't even know why it happens. Like, why? If they can throw overhand, why can't they pitch regular?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. So she went to this training camp in Atlanta, Georgia, and in doing so, she attracted the attention of this man named Joe Engel, who was the president and owner of the Chattanooga Lookouts. He was known for doing publicity stunts to draw crowds during the Great Depression because, no one had money to go to baseball games. No one really cared. No one had, there was nothing.
They were dealing with the Depression.
Yeah, they had that.
Not looking
They were looking for food,
fun.
not fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he would do these big, big grand things to like just draw people out, even if it's like 30 more. It's literally said like if it is a difference between 0 and 30, he'd do it because that's how desperate everybody was to generate an income. Seeing Mitchell as an opportunity to draw crowds, he signed her to the team on March 25th, 1931. She appeared in her first professional game on April 2nd, becoming only the second woman to play organized baseball behind Lizzie Arlington, who pitched for the Reading Coal Heavers. God, these names are so good. Who pitched for the Reading Coal Heavers against the Allentown Peanuts in a minor league game in 1898. Yeah, the
Peanuts!
Allentown Peanuts.
So he brought her onto the team because he knew that she would draw crowds?
Yeah.
Pretty much?
Yeah, so she was good. She could keep up, but really it was just to draw a crowd. Like, let's watch like a caged monkey. Like,
there's a girl in the sport.
Exactly.
Let's see what that's about.
Let's see if this lady can play. It's pretty terrible, but also kind of cool at the same time because she gets to play. Now we're going to get to something that's really interesting. So the New York Yankees at the time, the 1931 New York Yankees and the Chattanooga Lookouts were scheduled to play an exhibition game in Chattanooga, Tennessee on April 1st, 1931. So an exhibition game means it's not a real season game. It's just like
a scrimmage.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just a scrimmage game. I think it counts in some facet or another, but it's just like a for fun game. 17-year-old Mitchell was brought in to pitch during the first inning by the Lookouts manager, Bert Niehoff, after starting pitcher Clyde Barfoot. God, these
Barfoot.
Names. Yeah. Barfoot gave up a double and a single. Her first two opponents were some of the greatest baseball players to ever live. Babe Ruth.
I was going to say Babe Ruth, but I thought it was too early. He played in the 30s?
Yeah. This is like
how long?
This is like the height of the Yankees, like during that era. She pitched to Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is super awesome, but also terrifying. Those are your first two.
And she's only 17. How old are they?
They're older at this point.
Is 17 like in the normal? That's really young.
No, that's really young.
Okay.
Nowadays, you're
like in your 20s.
If a male player is drafted and it's like at 18, it's like a big to do. Like that's crazy. First up was Babe Ruth. After taking a ball, Ruth swung and missed at the next two pitches. Mitchell's fourth pitch to Ruth was called third strike. So she struck out Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth glared and verbally abused the umpire before being led away by his teammates to sit and wait for another batting turn. The crowd roared for Jackie. Babe Ruth was quoted in a Chattanooga newspaper as having said, "I don't know what's going to happen if they begin to let women in baseball. Of course, they will never make any good. Why? Because they are too delicate. It would kill them to play ball every day." Oh.
Well, that changes my thoughts about him.
Oh, Babe Ruth was a piece of shit. Like, he was not like a good dude.
I'm pretty sure he went to my grandparents' wedding in New York because it was one of the biggest weddings of the year, and he only showed up because there was alcohol.
Yeah,
he didn't know them. I'll have to fact check that.
He's kind of an interesting character. He was like really good to kids and like gave a lot, but he was also kind of a piece of shit. Like at the same time, like drank to womanizer. Just not really a savior. Like not a good guy.
Not a good guy.
Not really. Not like Lou Gehrig, who was fantastic.
I think he's just pissed that he got struck out by a 17-year-old girl who's a badass.
For sure. Next up was the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig, who swung through the first three pitches to strike out after after which Jackie Mitchell became super famous for striking out 2 of the greatest baseball players in history.
That's insane.
So Lou Gehrig, who was awesome, struck out on 3 pitches, swung and missed all of them. So that was her intro to Major League Baseball. A few days after Mitchell struck out Ruth and Gehrig, baseball commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis. These names are the best. Kennesaw Mountain Landis voided her contract, declaring women unfit to play baseball as the game was too strenuous.
So she was just dominating them, and they decided that she was the problem?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah. So that's classic, like...
toxic masculinity.
Kinda, yeah, where it's just like, she's better than us. Well, get her out of here. Like, wait, she's a competitor. Let her play.
She's ruining the game because it's less fair because she's so good.
However, Mitchell continued to play professionally, barnstorming with the House of David, a men's team famous for their very long hair and long beards. While traveling with the House of David team, she would sometimes wear a fake beard for publicity.
I was going to say with long hair, she must have fit right in.
Yeah, so she would have her long hair and put on a fake beard and look like the rest of the guys. Now, House of David, it makes me wonder if it was like a Jewish men's team. Is that...
I don't know anything about baseball.
Am I getting canceled?
Or the history of baseball?
Well, I mean, this isn't Major League, so it's pretty niche markets of baseball. There's a lot of different leagues back in the day. MLB was just one of them. It was the largest, but it was literally just one. And then as the years go on, Major League Baseball started acquiring teams to join in to the Major League Baseball roster of teams. So that's kind of how it was. It was just a bunch of different clubs everywhere, and then sort of they got incorporated as their fan base grew and they became a viable market.
Okay, got it.
You didn't care about that at all. All right. Well, she retired in 1937 at the age of 23 after becoming furious since her story of playing baseball was being used as something of a sideshow, once being asked to pitch while riding a donkey. So it became very degrading, right? Like pretty much immediately. She refused to come out of retirement when the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League formed in 1943. Major League Baseball would formally ban the signing of women to contracts on June 21st, 1952. The ban lasted until 1992, when Carrie Schuler was drafted by the Chicago White Sox in the 1993 season. She is the daughter of former White Sox general manager Ron Schuler. She was the first woman ever drafted in the Major League Baseball team. So she was the first and only woman ever to be actually drafted into the Major League Baseball.
I'm curious as to why there hasn't been anybody since.
Well, I'm curious about this Carrie Schuler because 1993 was like peak me watching baseball.
And you didn't know about her?
I have no idea who she is. So that's making
Maybe she didn't get playing time?
That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, yeah, I don't know. I had no idea who she was. It says the 18-year-old left-handed pitcher she was drafted in the 43rd round, 1208th pick overall of the 1993 MLB draft. So I wonder if that was something of a stunt as well. I'm not sure.
Like for them to look good for...
Well, the fact that the general manager was also her dad.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Something's going on. Like it doesn't seem.
That's too close of a connection to just be able to get onto the team.
Yeah, and then you never heard about her.
And to change the law.
Yeah,
it was a law. Was it a law, or is it was just like a rule by the league?
I wonder if the ban lasted until 1992, and then Carrie Schuler was drafted in 1993. So I wonder if it was just kind of like, that's what I'm saying, like a publicity stunt of like, hey, women can be. I don't know. It just seems so.
There's
odd.
There's no like major league. Is there a major league softball?
Yeah.
Or any sort of like.
I mean, yeah, there is. It's like the women's team that goes to like the Olympics
like
and
championships
things like that.
And the world championships or whatever.
It's obviously not a big thing like the Major League Baseball is, but
No, well, like most Major League women's sports.
Yeah, unfortunately. But it was kind of cool to hear that there technically is no ban. So you could, if a woman, could play it to that caliber,
If they wanted
then
to.
yeah, which I think is super awesome. And this brings up, more major league sports. Like I remember last year they were talking about having women football players be like punters or place kickers and things like that.
Yeah.
And there was
I can see how it's more controversial in a contact sport versus a non-contact sport.
Sure, that's kind of
that is like safety issues.
Yeah,
Football's horrible for your brain.
Well, yeah, CTE and all that. There was a woman kicker, and I don't know her name, and I apologize for that, but Morton Anderson had been training her, and he was a world, like the number one best like place kicker and punter and everything. He's training her.
Is she blonde?
I think so.
I feel like I know who you're talking about.
So they were training her. He's training her and backing her as she's a legit football player, and the whole thing is like, that's great. And a punter is a pretty safe position for somebody who's not of physical stature. But then they're saying like, but what if she just gets mauled? Just like something happens and it's just like, ooh,
just break right now.
Yeah, because not saying she can't play, but she just doesn't have the build that these monsters have. I don't have a build that these guys, like, I would get my ass kicked.
Well, and that's why in certain sports we do have like weight classes. Like they're not going to throw a 300-pound wrestler with the 100-pound wrestler.
Yeah,
that's just
a good
never
point.
going to happen.
No matter the sex, it's just size.
Yeah,
like it's
like fairness on body type and composition. I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be leaning one way if
there's never an answer to this.
Well, that brings up. Well, okay, let me just finish this up. Actually, that's about it. So in 1982, Mitchell was invited to throw out the ceremonial first pitch for the Chattanooga Lookouts on their season opening day.
Did she do it?
She did do it.
Cool.
Yeah, which is also cool to hear that the Chattanooga Lookouts are still a team. It's hard to sustain in a AA or
Did you
single A.
see Dr. Fauci's first? Did I say his name
he
right?
didn't. Yeah, he did. He
his first pitch
did not play sports as a kid.
Maybe he was nervous.
I don't know. That was pretty bad.
It was hilarious.
Jackie died in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, on January 7th, 1987, and was buried in Forest Hill Cemetery in Chattanooga.
Aww.
And that's Jackie's story. I thought it was just something kind of interesting.
It's like nice, but also
yeah. I mean,
sad.
Well,
unfortunate.
It brings up the conversation we were just having. Is like, what is the scale of that? Like, how do you include women in men's sports? Should you include women in men's sports? Is it a thing to do? Like,
yeah, and I think there's a lot of variance too based on the sport.
Tons of variance based on the sport. I fully agree with that. Like, you're not gonna have like boxing. Like, it's just not.
Yeah, well, contact versus non-contact. If it's more of like a technical sport, like
baseball
or golf,
or
tennis.
Golf seems strange because I feel like you definitely could. I know that men can drive it further, I guess. Like, I don't really know enough about golf and like where women and men's differences are.
What the is there like different standards for? What am I trying to say? Like
different goals for them. Like, well, so on a golf course, at least there you have like the regular tee, and then you have the women's tee, which is closer.
Okay, so like if I'm thinking about something like shot put, like in men's, you have to throw it a certain distance. So in women's, it's like a less of a difference. So how do you make that equal if you were going to combine the two?
That's what I'm saying. I'm
just like kind of making that up, but
I don't think you should because then it's just like, well, then just compete women against women.
Yeah.
Not why try and find the variance and to make it even. You know what I mean? It's just like, just have women compete with women.
Yeah. It's weird when it's a business, but if it's for fun.
But I also agree, like, I don't know, if they can keep up, why not? I don't know. Like, if you can play to that level, then there's no reason you shouldn't be able to compete. Like baseball, for sure. If you're a second baseman, you don't need to be, or like a first baseman, you don't need to move that much. There's not a whole lot of movement.
Baseball's a pretty still sport.
Yeah, it's more of a mental game than a physically active game. But when it's physically active, it is the best game.
Okay. I might disagree with you on that.
Well, you can disagree with me on that. This
Fine.
is America, and that is allowed. But that's all I've got for this week.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess that wraps up episode 2. If you would like to talk about your thoughts, opinions, questions, comments, please feel free to reach out to us on social media.
Yeah. Click like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Any engagement is good engagement, and we look forward to hearing from you guys. All right. Thanks.
See you next week.
Bye.